I'm here with the crew of SV Area, right?
Yeah.
From New York. It's Fred and Colette. They have such an incredible story that I really want to interview you. So this interview is being conducted in English because it's their language. But you guys, if you can also follow it on with subtitles in Portuguese and English, so that everyone can understand their lifestyle. I think it's really about. I want to share with you guys what they have been doing, what they will do, and what kind of your background.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll start with that. Like, so you guys, you obviously you have like a personal and professional background.
Mm-hmm.
That's not so much the focus, but I think it's also important, to talk about it because everyone comes from somewhere.
Totally.
Right? And without any special order. But for example, Fred, you work as a lawyer.
Yeah.
Technology lawyer.
Yep.
You worked. You come first of all from Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
Northern Massachusetts. I read on your website.
Yeah.
Then you moved to New York. You graduated as a lawyer, and lately you were working in San Francisco.
I was in San Francisco, and then I was actually back in New York for a bunch of years after that too. But been kind of bouncing around.
What kind of advocacy, what kind of law work you do?
Yeah, so I started out doing human rights law work.
Human rights.
I worked for a small NGO that basically does sort of international assistance in places where there's a constitutional right to counsel for the people accused of crimes, but where the lawyers just aren't trained on doing that type of work for people who aren't paying clients. So we used UN funding and would sort of set up offices for public defenders in other countries, places like Afghanistan, Palestine. There's now an office in Nepal. So I did that for a couple of years, and then went from that into essentially technology law, identity theft litigation, digital privacy, cybercrime work.
Sou o João e quero dar-te as boas-vindas ao meu veleiro Winderlust. Naveguei meio mundo no meu anterior iate, até que naufraguei na Austrália.
This yacht ran aground early Sunday morning, landing on unforgiving terrain.
Não pude desistir e encontrei um novo veleiro porque senão ficaria à margem de mim. Nasci em Lisboa voltado para o mar, mas a falta de tempo para mim e para a natureza fizeram-me partir. Então levantei a âncora e fui à Espanha, à África, às Caraíbas, Pacífico Sul. Até aqui já naveguei meio mundo pela natureza e sempre à vela por uma questão de consciência e sustentabilidade. Enquanto isso, nas horas de navegação em solitário, mergulho nas características do ser humano e da vida na Terra, que quero partilhar aqui contigo. Vem navegar comigo pelos próximos oceanos e conhecer as reflexões desta filosofia do mar. Bem-vindo a bordo!
And was in-house at a few different technology companies after that doing
Lately you were in GitHub?
I was in GitHub, and then more recently than that, a healthcare tech company called ZocDoc, but then have worked sort of as outside counsel for a lot of information security companies and small technology companies.
That's really cool.
Doing sort of consulting work for them.
Maybe people that don't know some of these companies, GitHub is quite of a reference, but if you don't, basically these are big or significant companies in Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah, big Silicon Valley tech companies.
That's really cool. And then Colette, and I mean, I think you have equally done incredible stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's all good. I mean, you also from New York, right? Like born and raised.
Born and raised in New Jersey, and then New York's my adoptive home.
Yeah. For people from the outside, I think New York is all. I mean, it's all like New York, like kind of New York, which I know it's different the state and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it all sounds, absolutely New York. But correct me if I'm wrong. But you also worked. I know you have been working lately as a tailor for opera.
Yeah.
Like the opera events in New York. Is that it? Can you talk a bit about that? Because that sounds like completely incredible. I would say.
Thanks. I went to school for fashion design, but have been working in mostly like TV, film, and more recently at the.
Could you name some of the films you did? Or TV shows?
TV shows. Jumped around on like in different departments on like Sneaky Pete, on like most like on Dickinson, on yeah, bunch of, let's see what else.
Whatever.
Yeah,
TV shows and films.
yeah, TV shows and films, and then
Sounds amazing.
yeah,
Wow, it's
And-
quite something.
thanks. And then yeah, more recently the Met at the opera, so which was good.
Which opera is it? The
Metropolitan.
Metropolitan.
Yeah.
Wow, that's like the
It's
landmark, right? Of New York.
yeah, I worked with a lot of cool people.
That must be amazing.
yeah.
And all of a sudden, you guys team up for this incredible expedition, so to speak. As you put it, the wrong way.
Yeah.
I disagree with that politely because to me that's the right way. Basically, was it your idea, Fred, or Colette's, or both?
Bit of both.
Both?
We talked through a few different route options. The kind of core concept was I'd found this boat that had been kind of a dream boat of mine since my late teens, and the one that I could afford, and that was somewhere that.
Can you describe a bit the boat?
Yeah,
Trimaran, basically,
sure. It's
incredible.
The boat's,
I'll show the footage.
Erie is a Condor 40 trimaran.
Yeah.
And this was a U.S. design by designers Mick Price and Phil Herding. They made about, I think, 20 or 21 of them, starting from the mid-'80s until about 90 or 91.
Yeah.
And what appealed to me about it is, if you're talking trimarans, other than like the super, super expensive, like Rapido 60 kind of boats,
Neos.
things that mere mortals can afford, they're either really small, really fast, like racing boats with
Also
nothing
take a picture.
inside,
Yeah.
or they're like big, old, just super heavy floating apartments. And the Condor 40 is one of relatively few older boats that are right in the middle. So it's kind of got enough down below to cruise on long term without it being totally Spartan.
Yeah.
But is still, it's still a sailing boat more than it's just a floating place to live. It sails really well.
And you call your project Outer Earth, right? Where does it come from? Because the trimaran is Erie, but you
Yeah.
call all your enterprise, the expedition, you call it Outer Earth. Where does it come from? And
So this is sort of it's an inside joke with myself, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
There's
sounds really cool, actually.
it's a sort of playing off of a old kind of like almost like conspiracy or occult thing that was popular in like the 1920s and 30s about Inner Earth, which was this
Okay.
whole like
Yeah.
people would write these fantastical stories about like flying to the Arctic and finding a cave and going in and discovering this whole like utopian civilization living inside the hollow Earth, and they called it Inner Earth theory.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's kind of funny, but what about the Earth out there around us? So Outer Earth's kind of a fun play on words of that.
So your website, just for whoever wants to check it, it's outer.earth, right?
Yep.
OUTER.earth. EARTH.
Yep.
But you guys are also on Instagram, right?
Yeah, the Instagram for this trip is Outer Earthbound. So just like the website, no period, and then bound, BOUND.
Yeah, check it. There's a lot of content. You do posts.
Yeah, I definitely update the Instagram more than
Photos.
the website. Sorry to say.
Yeah. But the website is really good, actually.
Oh, thanks.
You
Yeah.
explain a lot the project. It's quite comprehensive.
Yeah, I try and do
The
more
boats.
like the long form writing stuff on the website.
And rolling back a bit to New York,
Mhm.
that kind of united you. I mean, in New York, it's always like, New York speaks for itself, right? It's like
Yeah.
one of the main hubs in the world. So, but there is also, as you very well know, I also found out a bit. There's kind of a New York sailing scene,
Yeah.
and that's how you met, right? Could you maybe tell me a bit? Could you guys give a bit of an insight? How is this sailing scene in New York? And
Yeah.
how did you came across?
So if you don't, when folks think of New York, they don't necessarily think of sailing and like the like sailing scene there, and it feels kind of like unattainable or just like too expensive or too whatever. But there's actually a huge sailing scene in New York. There's a bunch of like dinghy clubs. There's a bunch of different clubs that don't necessarily have their own little clubhouse or whatever, but And there's like a bunch of marinas that do Wednesday night and Saturday night or Saturday racing, basically. So yeah, there's a lot of options there that I've kind of found out all at once in like around 2021. So.
And at some point, you were sailing at the same boat, or you joined Fred's boat. Always.
So the
If you want to talk about it, obviously.
totally.
I just find it an interesting story.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, definitely.
Really interesting.
So I'd had sort of the same image when I first moved to New York of like, oh yeah, there's sailing here, but like New York Yacht Club, super wealthy people with like big boats and like
Yeah.
nothing else. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's not for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you say, there's lots of little clubs, and you know, yeah, like a lot of like really accessible places to get out on the water.
Yeah, totally.
But I moved back to New York when all the travel lockdowns around COVID had started. But it was after I'd purchased Iria. So I was sort of looking for like...
Because you were going to Australia to
I was gonna go to-
acquire the boat, but suddenly...
Yeah, so...
And Australia was one of the worst in the whole world.
Yeah, the short version
That
is,
was
you know,
really...
definitely got the boat sort of as a project.
Yeah.
It was, you know, affordable, but was like needed a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I had... That was in like winter 2019, 2020. And I had tickets to fly back in April. And Australia's borders closed, I think, on March 26th with the US. But, you know, was planning this big trip. Didn't want to be, like, just off the water, not sailing for however many years. Didn't know at that point. So found a sort of cheap boat back in New York, or near New York.
Weatherly?
Weatherly, yeah. It's an Islander 40.
Islander 40?
Yep.
Cheap?
Huh?
Cheap?
Cheap, but like a
Relatively.
It was a good boat.
It really well.
Sails really nicely.
So you guys sailed a lot in the other boat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
We actually
Really cool.
we met because a mutual friend was living on his boat in a marina that it was Wednesday night racing with.
Yeah, so this was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, our friend, I found out our friend was living on their boat, and I was like so excited because I've always wanted to live on a boat, and
Yeah.
so we started talking about that, and they're like, yeah, you should come by one day, and like you should come by next Wednesday. We should go for a sail, and I was like, oh, that'll be great,
Yeah.
and show up. Didn't know that it was racing night, and that we were going to be racing, so I raced with them for like.
Were you
for
on the opponent team?
No.
No, I raced with them for a few weeks, and then one week they were like, there's something wrong with the boat, like, need to fix it. And I was like, do you need hands to fix it? And they're like, yeah, sure, come by. So I came by, and when I got to the marina, they were on Fred's boat.
Yeah. So I just happened to have hauled out my old boat Weatherly to get it re-anti-fouled and everything for the season.
Super
And our
cool.
friend Michael was hanging out over there. So that was where we met.
And then you ended up on his boat.
We did some racing on Michael's boat. We did a bunch of racing on Weatherly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
And Colette, I mean, you are professionally a tailor right now, but you also do a lot of sailing tailoring. What do you envision? What you like to do about this?
Well, I worked at basically made an apprenticeship at a sail loft for like a summer, which was really fun. And so really want to learn more about like sail repair and sail making and whatnot. But yeah, there's a lot of overlap between sail making and tailoring. It's just like basically a lot of the same things, but like different proportions of machines and different terms for the same exact things. So there's a lot of cool crossover with that, which I love and it's really exciting.
You're transferring your skills from your previous or like your professional tailoring activity onto sail.
Yeah, exactly.
On the benefit of sailing at Iria, right? Because it's always super handy to have someone with
Oh yeah.
proper tailoring and
Yeah, it's
sewing
like
skills.
I absolutely adore how much like for me personally how much things transfer, but I feel like that's the cool thing about sailing. I feel like everyone with like every different background, there's
Yeah.
something that like you could bring for
Oh yeah.
that like transfers into sailing, whether it's like within boat repair, whether it's in like
Cooking,
Yeah.
whatever. Actually,
everything. Like everyone has something to bring, which I think is so
it
cool.
can be-
Yeah.
So that's very true. Actually.
Yeah. And like even in like boat construction, like even in like fiberglassing, I've been seeing a lot of cool crossover in
Yeah.
what like my knowledge basis is, and like how like the
Meshes.
how the fabric
Another
overlaps
kind
and
of
like
overlap.
and how
Yeah.
that should move and
Another
like
kind of fabric craft. Yeah.
exactly so
Very true.
yeah, I love it.
Another thing that I really fancy about your background, well, maybe because it's kind of similar to mine. Like we like what people we like people that like the same things that we like, right?
Totally.
It's exciting.
Which is a bit like whatever, but
Yeah.
just full disclosure. No, but I really admire that you guys have also a background on activism.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe I'm wrong, but sometimes I see sailing itself as an activism act, right? Because you get your boat, you go out there, and that's like some sort of personal activism, so to speak.
Yeah.
Not to mention the empowerment that's linked to that.
Definitely.
But if you guys want to tell me a bit your background on this, I think that would be something very inspirational for other folks that are watching right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
I mean, I feel like there's.
If you want to, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a good
no problem.
place to start with it.
Yeah, it's quite of a subject.
I feel like a thing that comes up a lot in activist and sort of a lot of kind of not just activist circles, but any circles that are sort of pointing out, hey, there's other ways to go about life than the one that we're kind of given by the status quo where we come from.
Exactly.
I feel like there's I feel like I have a lot of activist friends who've like spent time in like community living situations or other kind of alternative lifestyle settings, and I feel like sailing's a really sort of powerful one of those where you're doing something that is much more sustainable, much lower impact, much more sort of self-directed than just living in an apartment or a home. And
Would you agree that this is an anti-capitalist personal statement for the lifestyle? Or?
I think it can be. I mean, it's funny because I think at the same time, sailing is such a there's a lot of material that goes into it. There's a lot of
Expenses.
expenses and things you're buying.
Very true.
But I think I think at the very least it's a lot more self-directed. I think of I think something that gets talked about in a lot of like political and activist circles is this notion of not so much. Sure, there's like voting with a ballot, but there's a lot of other ways that people express their feelings about the way a certain decision's been handled or the way a certain political or country direction is going. And there's a lot of talk, especially in international politics, about voting with your feet and the way that people move or migrate. And I feel like it's hard to have a more sort of pure expression of being able to vote with your feet than a sailboat, where it's sort of that old adage of if you're in an anchorage, like your neighbors, you pull up the anchor and go somewhere else.
Exactly.
Same sort of thing of being able to say, hey, I'm not going to put up with being here anymore, and having that freedom to go elsewhere.
Also to support the communities that you want to be supporting, and like I feel like in that vein, I feel like sailing makes it a lot easier to be like a lot of folks are talking about like consuming less and being more mindful of what like we're buying and what products we are like supporting and companies we're supporting, and like I think living on a boat makes that a lot more clear. Like you get to I feel like it's easier to prioritize things and also like enjoy the world we live in. Like I feel like so much of our lives in cities and on land are like spent inside, and like it's just been so nice to be outside so much, honestly, and like just like seeing the moon every day, like understanding like weather more, and like feeling more grounded. And back to empowerment, like feeling more grounded in the space we live, basically, and like trusting yourself to be able to make small decisions makes you trust yourself to make bigger ones. And I feel like this kind of lifestyle kind of facilitates that a lot. So I think it's like anti-capitalist in that way, very much so. And like I see a lot more mutual aid. I feel like just like
Oh, yeah.
to the core of like seamanship is like mutual aid.
Yeah.
Even though it's called other things or whatever, but like it's the same thing.
It's the same,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's the same thing we're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. I feel like a lot of sort of anarchist communities have a lot of emphasis on mutual aid and on sort of radical self-reliance. And I feel like I've never seen more of both in the same place as with the Sailing
Exactly.
community.
Yeah,
Very true.
and I don't know. It's just like it's it's really beautiful to see, and like I think it's a lot harder on land to do that because I don't know. There's just like so many distractions. There's so many distractions, and like it's nice to have less. I feel
Yeah.
like distractions in that way.
Well, I think especially in a city, you're so sort of insulated, not just from the like community around you. Like it's so
Yeah.
easy to have neighbors who you've never even really seen.
Yeah,
But you're also so insulated from the natural environment. And I think, I've met so many people who, spent their whole life in a city and, reached retirement, went sailing, and it's really the first time they're, seeing the environment.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
I feel like we, in sort of, especially urban life, we consume and create so much without any awareness of like what happens to that afterwards or where does it go.
yeah,
And I think it's incredibly healthy for people to be more face to face with that, like you are sailing around.
yeah.
Could you guys point out some of your influences, be it like books or movies or YouTube sailing channels or Instagram profiles? Is there some things that kind of are a reference for you?
I feel like when I got like back into sailing, when I
Yeah.
was living in the Bay Area,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
SF,
yeah, yeah.
I just sort of read whatever I could get my hands on, and everything from like books on like techniques and methods to like people's sailing stories. We were talking about Motissier the other day. Like his story is definitely inspiring. The Long Way.
The Long Way.
Yeah.
I haven't yet started outlining my own book, The Wrong Way. But
Yeah, the wrong way.
but no, I
You're
read-
thinking of that? Are you singing?
I don't know. It'd be fun.
That would be super
I
fun.
read Motissier's book. I really like that. As far as ones that have been sort of inspiring for this trip,
The Long Way.
I don't know. I feel like I read a lot of things by I think we were talking about the Parties
Yeah.
yesterday, Lynn and Larry.
Lynn
They
and
did a lot
Larry
of like
Parley.
sort of early, cruise, sort of liveaboard cruising books.
Guides, right?
A lot of guides.
Instructional, inspirational.
Yeah. One of the ones that I found really inspiring and just fun to read, just because he's such a good writer, is John Kretschmer's books.
Yeah, I was gonna say we should mention John Kretschmer.
Yeah, he did some really good ones. One specific one I would read just because I think it's probably the most like accessible book on weather that I've seen was Reading the Glass
It's super cool.
by Elliot Rappaport.
Yeah.
Reading the Glass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does just an incredibly good job of. I feel like I've read some weather stuff where it's super academic and high level,
Yeah.
and if you don't already have all the foundation, it's hard to follow. And he does just an incredibly good job of alternating between like weather details and very relatable stories about like how that matters at sea.
He's a great storyteller. and it's very eloquent.
Much like Kretschmer, just like writes in like a very good way.
That,
Tells
like-
a great story.
Yeah, like balances kind of like useful information
Yeah.
and like good stories without making either of them sound like inaccessible and overwhelming
Yeah,
and like
exactly.
yeah, just beautifully written.
As far as YouTube channels,
Yeah.
they don't post a whole lot, but they do some really, really high quality like boat project videos. And they're one of the relatively few other people I've met cruising like at a younger age on a multi-hull.
Wow.
Is a channel called Young Barnacles.
Wow. Sounds good, eh? the
Yeah, it's
name?
good. They do a lot
It's
of
a
cool
fun
stuff,
name.
and like a good
I like
balance
it.
of like, I think the guy like works in the boat industry in like composites, so
Yeah.
like really good composite how-tos and a bunch of cool sailing too.
What about you, Colette? Do you have any like favorites, or if you do,
I have like
besides the books you guys mentioned?
yeah, love Boat Lizard on Instagram.
Yeah,
They're great.
she's good. Eh?
Yeah,
She's good.
I feel like
She was here as well. Like
Oh, yeah?
I think a year ago or 2 years.
Something like that.
She was in Muscat.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, hope we run into them at some
I
point.
think right now she's in Thailand or
Yeah,
Malaysia.
somewhere
Yeah, I
up
think
there.
Indonesia
Yeah.
or something. Bop, 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 bop.
There's also another one they are kind of teaming up. It's The Wilderness of Waves.
Oh,
Have
yeah.
you
Oh
watched?
yeah.
It's
I've
really
never
cool,
watched
man.
it. I follow them on Instagram.
She's really cool.
Yeah.
They do a great job.
Yeah. Also, not as back to books, not as like fluidly written, I would say, but like beautiful information. There's a book very honestly called Tides.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and it I'll find the author, but it's like super interesting to he's kind of done like an investigative journalist piece, and it's just fascinating to see tides, and this doesn't give it the how cool it is, but tides in different areas and like how just powerful the ocean is.
Yeah. On book recommendations that I found like really inspiring for this trip, the two I'd specifically recommend for people looking at like multi-hulls or trimarans is Jim Brown's The Case for the Cruising Trimaran. It's written long ago, but covers a lot of like the basic seamanship differences for those kinds of boats. And then Chris White's The Cruising Multi-Hull also does a really cool job of talking about the development of these sort of faster multi-hull boats for cruising. And yeah, Chris White's book has a lot of like another one of those where like it blends a bit of personal story with a bit of like really technical detail with a bit of seamanship, and just really good references for multi-hull boats.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have been sailing from Australia up to Fiji. You'll keep going against the trade winds, eventually around the world. You never know.
We'll see.
Yeah,
See
you'll
how we
see.
feel, see how the
Yeah.
boat's doing.
But basically, I wanna ask you guys, what kind of message would you like to tell other cruisers, be it in the Pacific or the Atlantic or the Mediterranean, whatever that may be, as experienced travelers yourselves?
I think it's really important to be aware of the histories of the places that you're traveling. These like islands are not just Instagram backgrounds, and a lot has happened, obviously. And so it's good to have a background on like the cultures, maybe a bit of the language. Not necessary, but really cool if you do have a lot like better experiences, and know what's happened there before you arrive.
Yeah, I think as a message, I'd echo the same sentiment that I think several of the party's books echo as well, which is, if you're thinking about getting out there and have some idea that seems off the beaten path, do your homework, but get out there and do it. Because I feel like we've met so many people out cruising whose reaction to hearing like what we're doing is like, oh, like I wish I'd done that when I was your age, or like, that's like such a cool idea. I wish we'd thought of doing something like that. And I feel like there's a lot of people who just like wait and think there's like just this one way to do it, and you miss out on so much that way. I think better to be out here giving it a try.
Also, there's so many resources to like learn stuff now and get experience and like.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I feel like even the people we've met were like, oh yeah, I like really didn't know anything about sailing before starting your plan for this trip. There's so many things out there to learn from.
Yeah.
More than I think there have been in the past, basically ever.
Yeah.
So, the only ones that scare me are the ones who are like, oh, I did like the first level ASA course and then off we went.
Yeah, you need a
Or
little.
like, I don't know, we'll learn on the way.
Get some time in there. Right?
Yeah.
Like
I think, honestly, I think like more than anything I read, Time on the Water was useful for just getting a sense of, what it's like out there.
because like we're all responsible for each other. So and if you're on the water, wear your life jacket, and if you're offshore, especially, tether into the boat. There's no reason not to. We have so much beautiful technology now. We're so lucky to have the technologies we have. Like, it's important.
Basically, I would ask you if you guys have any final message or anything you would like to talk about to the audience, to the people that are watching this video.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people even people who like grew up doing a lot of sailing, you think, oh, I've been like doing this kind of thing instead for a bunch of years. How is that going to translate? But yeah, there's such a wide range of skills encompassed by, things you need to know at least a little bit of out cruising. That, yeah, I feel like I almost can't think of anything I've done that doesn't have like at least a little bit of relation to something on the boat.
Yeah.
Or in this life that's useful. So I don't know. I'd like to see more people like not talking themselves out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. Good community.
Yeah.
Cool people. I was talking to you about Seasickness Project, and like, I've talked to a bunch of people that are like, oh, I get seasick. I can't go sailing or whatever. And like, I've been doing a bunch of research on this. I get seasick at certain swells, and it's taken a lot of troubleshooting for like my specific self, but I've been successful in figuring out ways to be like less seasick, and even like the last trip we did, I did pretty well.
Yeah, went a lot
I
better.
don't know if I got sick. I don't remember if I got sick now at this point, but it went a lot better.
And you guys go against the wind, the swell,
Yeah.
the wave, the current.
Yeah.
It's,
So
if you figured it out for these conditions, you figured it out for all conditions. I would say.
hopefully,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's ways
Do you
around.
plan to do like publish a book or write, or what would you like to do, or just do some consultancy? I don't know. Just
I want
Thinking out
to
loud.
do more research on this, honestly, because like, I want to figure out what the correlations are. I mean, I'm sure there has to be research done on this. I mean, like, people have been sailing for so long, and like, I know everyone has their kind of like folk method ways of solving seasickness, and like everybody's bodies are different. Like, I think the cause of seasickness for different people varies a lot. Like, so like it's never just one thing, and what works for one person might not work for the others. And so that's why I think I find it so fascinating, because I feel like for me it's more in like, I was talking yesterday, I feel like it's more in my stomach and like a little bit of anxiety, but not entirely one or the other. And like, we have a friend that feels it's like in her ear, and like that's her, but I don't think that's her problem. So like, she uses like things that she uses medication that deals with that. Medication doesn't work for me, so just, if you're passionate about it and you're passionate about stuff, don't let seasickness, I guess, hold you back from that. There's ways around everything. It's just a matter of figuring out and problem solving for how that works best for you. So
Totally. And I feel like there are so many like incredibly accomplished both cruising and racing sailors who like get ruinously seasick in like one or another conditions, or like at one or another time. And yeah, like you say, just people who figured out a way to like adapt and plan around it is the whole thing.
yeah, exactly. So don't let that stop you.
Se gostaste deste vídeo, deixa o teu like e subscreve o canal ativando as notificações. Já sabes que vai haver muito mais vídeos. A frequência agora é semanal, todas as semanas há um novo vídeo a sair sobre este estilo de vida incrível que é viver no mar. Então subscreve, e se quiseres obviamente ajudar ainda mais a tornar este canal viável, sempre com vídeos regulares e de qualidade, por favor, vai ao Patreon, patreon.com/winterlust, deixa lá o teu apoio, ou se preferires podes tornar-te um apoiante aqui mesmo no YouTube. Um grande abraço, estamos juntos, até à próxima navegação.